Hey guys, Jeff Kamke here with Wealth Energetics. Really excited about today's podcast. Got Dr. Bruce Phillips with me here today. I've known Dr. Bruce for I think about 10 years now through Mortar Health System as a certified best practitioner. I know he was a trainer at several trainings back years ago. I think he helped my wife after our accident at a training, and my wife and mother-in-law were recently with him down in Arizona at a training last fall. And I love Dr. Bruce because he's not just about chiropractic, not just about supplements. He's about really getting people holistically better and finding ways to implement different modalities, helping them in different areas of their life. And, he's big into network marketing and sharing wealth with people. And he's a chiropractor. He's been for 30 years. He celebrated 30 years last year as a chiropractor, which is an amazing achievement. As I said, he's a best instructor with Mortar Health System, or Dr. Sue Mortar now, and he's even on the medical advisory board for Kokua Vita, a CBD oil company, which I think is fantastic. I love their products. So welcome, Dr. Bruce. Thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to jump into some topics around health and abundance today.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here and excited to share.
Awesome. So since you're a chiropractor, and I know, I don't have a background in chiropractic myself, but I've been a chiropractic patient literally my entire life. My parents took me as an infant to chiropractic. We did the same with our children. So chiropractic is much a part of our life. And it's not just about the spine and subluxations. It goes so much beyond the principles around health and how all the different facets of life affect our health, from what we think about to how we move our body. So share a little bit, Dr. Bruce, about your perspective and philosophies around health beyond just traditional chiropractic.
Sure. Chiropractic was founded on the philosophy that we had three areas of interference patterns. We had chemical interference patterns, we had mental or emotional interference patterns, and then we had physical. B.J. Palmer and his father, D.D. Palmer, they were kind of the beginning of chiropractic, and they called it trauma, toxins, and thoughts. And back then, because life was more simple and there weren't so many industries and things like that, chiropractic was founded in the 1800s, and so they really felt the adjustment could accomplish it all. And maybe it could. I wasn't alive back then, but maybe it could back then. And so many chiropractors, I feel, are still kind of in that rut, and they haven't updated for current need. And so as I got into chiropractic, the people that challenged me were the ones that didn't respond. And most people do respond to just chiropractic care, so that's a wonderful thing. But the ones that don't respond are the ones that make you think. And also the ones that came in and were subluxated the same way repetitively make you think. I'm like, why is that? Why is it the same every time? I don't just want to be, flipping switches basically in the spine. And so I got looking, and I found that people had certain nutritional deficiencies, and people had emotional stress patterns that they weren't handling properly. And so that's what got me into BEST, and that got me into nutrition response testing and other techniques outside of the traditional spinal manipulation and joint manipulation that chiropractic is so well known for. And I know my wife often says, I wish there was another name for you beyond chiropractor, because it doesn't really describe what you do at this point. And she's probably right, but probably at the foundation of it is I'm a holistic energy practitioner. So I like to balance people's energy and see them optimally express their potential when it comes to health and wealth. I love seeing people be successful. And so oftentimes their health and their limiting beliefs is the only thing holding them back. They have every other thing, all their other ducks in a row.
Totally agree. I'm reminded of a phrase that Dr. Ted always talked about, that in the training, where there's one area of your life that you see the symptoms in. Maybe it's your spine or your physical health or your emotional health, but that's not isolated to that area of your life. It shows up in other areas. It shows up in your relationships. It shows up in your money. And when we fix those areas appropriately and actually get to the root cause of what's driving that symptom pattern, there's a positive effect of it. It actually is fixing other areas of your life that you might not be focused on because it wasn't screaming the loudest, but it's still part of the journey, and you can't separate, the areas of our life. And that's one of the big things that I've always seen in my lifetime. You go to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, you go to the foot doctor, you go to all these isolated experts to fix certain things. And we miss the fact that no, all these things go together, and the patterns that we have up here in our mind that affect our physical body, like you said, they're affecting how we perform in our business, and whether we're able to do cold calls, we're able to, talk to that prospect, or whatever the thing is, they're all connected. So speak a little bit deeper to, some of the mental and energetic, patterns that we have, and how they get established. What do we do with them once we find them? How do we navigate to a higher level in those areas?
Well, it makes me think of the phrase, nothing happens to you, it always happens for you. And so if you flip that line of thinking and you're constantly reflective of how is this showing up in my life in other places, as you stated, or how can I learn from this experience? And so many people, they get in a pattern, and that pattern served them in a particular situation. But then as that situation updated and changed, they didn't get out of that pattern that they were initially in. Kind of like what I alluded to with my profession of chiropractic. A lot of people are stuck in a pattern that was great for starting chiropractic and getting the foundation of chiropractic going, and that foundation has not changed. But then we have to expand the way that we deal with those different stressors as we have more chemical, emotional, and physical stressors in our life. Back then, people used to make a living from their backs. And so most of their stressors came from physical experiences. Now, most people make a living sitting on their backsides and using their brains. And so most of their interference patterns come from an emotional abnormality or imbalance. And when we think of emotional abnormalities, most people think of diagnosable conditions. Well, I'm not depressed, I'm not anxious, I'm not, bipolar, or whatever diagnosis you want to come up with. But are you that type of person that maybe can't express yourself fully? Are you that type of person that maybe doesn't experience all the full bouquet of emotions? Are you in a happy situation, but you're kind of sad and you shouldn't be? Are you less communicative with people in your environment? All these different things are ways that you coped with something in the past, and now it's not serving you in the present, and that can be fixed, that can be corrected. And it's not like it takes years of sitting down with a therapist to talk about it and end up talking about your parents or something. It's allowing your nervous system to update in a new way. And as you well know, we use a technique called bioenergetic synchronization technique, because what that does is kind of reboots your brain, your subconscious portion of your brain, so that now not only are you able to have these patterns reconnection, rewired, but also your body is better controlling itself and regulating itself. And now you're going to have a healthier version of yourself. So when people tell you you only use 10% of your brain, you only consciously use 10% of the brain. The other 90% is this subconscious part that is controlling respiration and cellular repair and cellular replication and the liver working and the stomach working, all these things that you probably don't even have a clue about what's going on, let alone think about what's going on. And so that's where the majority of your brain power is going on a moment by moment basis, keeping you going, keeping you running, and keeping you as optimally healthy as possible. So when you've hit a plateau in your health, it's always one of these patterns that are interfering and getting limited so that you can't optimally heal and repair to the next level.
I love that. And, you made me think of just now as a parent. We got two children, 5 and 8 right now, and knowing what we've learned from the Mortar health system and identifying patterns, and knowing emotionally, like you said, it's not that everybody's depressed and we don't know it. Obviously, there is I think a pandemic of some of those diagnosable type emotional issues, but it's just seeing your children moment to moment and seeing the emotions that they go through. And then if you're off emotionally or energetically and you know, snap at them, or you're just not as open to them, and seeing the shift in them and being able to see the pattern that you almost create in them sometimes of what that's doing to them, and you can see them shut down energetically and emotionally just by how you are. And then when you flip that around and you sit down with them and you explain and you open up, and to see that shift back, those are a lot of those shifts that take place. And a lot of times they're subtle, but we're speaking more to the bigger things that happen to us a lot of times, you know, in the womb or pre, you know, conception. It can happen energetically. And then, you know, as we're going through those first few years of our life, there's so many imprints that take place on all areas of our life, not just about health, but how our parents handled money, how they handled emotions. I come from a family that they buried emotions, and I still see those patterns running in my family after 65, 70 years of, you know, my mom and my aunt and some of those things. And it's amazing how those patterns just are there if we don't recognize them and we don't know what to do about them. And once you are aware of what those patterns are and how they're driving your decisions in business and how they're driving your health, and maybe the decisions around health, the decisions about, should I eat, you know, more fruits and vegetables? Should I eat, you know, pizza and chips? Those are patterns that take place from up here that are deeply ingrained from a lot of times childhood, but then also from the more, you know, traumatic experiences that we have as an adult, those imprints. So speak a little bit deeper to some of that phenomenon, and how people get into those ruts. And then, you know, how do they identify? Is it a process they can do themselves to identify some of these patterns, of just paying attention, awareness? You know, speak a little bit into that.
Sure. The first thing is, most of these patterns are established when we're kids. And so that's why you're so blessed that you got to be aware of those when your kids were kids. I learned about it when my kids were still teenagers, but most of those patterns had already been set and established. And so I'm looking there, I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? You know, how could I have done better, and all that type of thing. So the beauty of being aware, and the beauty of doing things like this, these podcasts, is then people can know and do better. And that's the first level of learning anything, is just the awareness that there is something out there more than, you know, me just snapping and coming down on my kids and keeping them in what's established as good behavior.
Mhm.
And you know, we all express ourselves differently, and sometimes when people are expressing themselves in a creative fashion, then that can be considered outside the norm. You know, I have one granddaughter, and she likes to just hum and sing and all that kind of stuff. And you know, sometimes it's not encouraged because you're in a quiet place.
Mhm.
But you never know, you know, she might be developing some sort of emotional expression of herself. And you don't want to clamp down on that. One really, really obvious story that happened with a patient of mine is she claims to have loved to sing, but she never really felt like she sang well. And so when she was in middle school or high school, I can't remember the exact details, but she was in choir, and she would just mouth the words because she didn't want to like sing off key and make it sound bad. She appreciated the quality so much, she didn't want to drag it down. Well, one time while everybody was singing, the choir director, you know, stopped and said, I'll just use a fake name, Michelle, you're not singing right. And she knew she wasn't singing at all, so how could she be singing wrong? But
Mhm.
he made her, for the first time in her life in front of that group, sing her part in front of everybody. And of course she didn't do it right, because she had never sung it before and had no plans of singing it in the future. And that made such a scar on her that she would never sing, not even like in church or anything like that. And this is the type of scarring, scratching in our subconscious that we're talking about. It can be, you know, you wouldn't think that would create a long-term scar, but we've all seen these people that confront bullies from high school, middle school, elementary, on these talk shows, etc. And it creates a deep scar that if we don't heal that in some way, shape, or form, the easiest way we can do that is forgive the other person. And forgiveness never means that you're condoning what they're doing. It just means you're moving on emotionally. Forgiveness is for you, it's not for the other person. So that's the easiest way you can rectify the situation. The next easiest way is find somebody that's the best practitioner and work through these subconscious patterns, because many of them, that's why they call them subconscious, many of them you aren't even aware where they came from. And so the technique that we do allows us to find them and clear them out. And as you well know, so many people end up laughing or crying or expressing emotion, and they don't even know why, because that's been pushed down. There's this book that I love to refer to. It's called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. And so these feelings that get pushed down, they don't die. They bubble up as a symptom or some other limiting behavior, as you were referring to, and they become a barrier for us to being our true self, our full, whole, healthy self. And so paying attention to these symptoms and being aware of these symptoms, and now having the knowingness that you can do something about them, that's the key. That's the blessing of us being together and spreading this information.
I love that. As you spoke about your granddaughter, I was thinking of my son. He's very engineering minded. He loves to be tinkering with things, and he's in the stage now where everything comes apart but hasn't gone back together yet. So there can be times in the household of elevated frustration levels when you're stepping on little tiny screws and things that he took apart that might not be meant to take apart or should be taken apart, or he just grabs things that maybe aren't even his to play with. And so it's been interesting, learning these things so many years ago, and not that we're perfect with them because we know them, but we're at least aware of them and we have some corrective tools, right? But we're as parents, we try to, when we might be frustrated about the pile of rubble that looks like after the bomb went off, he's in his imaginative state. He's building, he's imagining, he's thinking of these pieces and these pieces. And I was a Lego builder growing up, so I know where he's coming from to some degree. And one of the things from the best technique that we've learned is part of what makes it so hard to identify the patterns and the emotions is because if we were to yell at him while he's in a very imaginative state, he's in that energy. He's in that energy of imagination and whatever those positive, just bubbling over emotions are. And then we come through and slam the door on him with anger and rage or whatever emotion it may be. And those things super glue, subconsciously they tie together. And then if we were to move into adulthood with him really being clamped down on, I can't express myself in this way. I can't be imaginative around, parts and gears and all the different things he loves to do. As an adult, he might not be able to figure out that pattern isn't stored under like pleasurable and under the positive emotions, actually stored under the frustration or the anger that the parents bring to the mix, right? And that's part of the dynamic that makes the best technique so powerful, is because I know as a receiver of, probably hundreds of technique and sessions over the years, there's so many times where you might write down an experience on a piece of paper and you think you might know where it came from. Maybe you don't even have an idea, but then on the emotional chart, the practitioner will say, oh, that's stored under, perfection, or for me, one that's come up more recently in things is spite. And for me, being able to, through Global Information Network and through BEST, being able to tune into what's going on, in my own body and my own emotions energetically, there's always this like deep resonance when those words get spoke. It's like you can just feel everything dissolve. There's just this, it's the destructive interference, right? To the interference. It really neutralizes it at an energetic level. And that's part of what you're speaking to of things being cleared, of being able to move past these things subconsciously, energetically, because we're literally finding the frequency that the pattern that you find in your life that's running is stored under subconsciously. And a lot of times it's not the emotions that we think it is. And if we sat down with that counselor, that therapist, and we talk session after session after session about how we feel, we're never going to identify. They don't have the capacity a lot of times to identify what those patterns are stored under emotionally in the brain. And that's one of the wonderful things about the technique and how it can unlock these patterns that we can't access many other ways.
Right. We're familiar with the patterns. I believe most of us have experienced them. And for some reason, we make the connection and we feel the connection when it's like a positive situation in most cases. But when it's more subtle, like these situations we're talking about, we tend to gloss over them. So most of the people that will hear this can identify with a song that just instantly changes their state. You know, it might be linked to a song that was played at a memorable occasion, or maybe even a bad occasion. They might link it with a funeral or something sad, or they heard it playing when something bad happened. And so it takes them right back to that state. And that's what we're talking about, is a linkage. And that linkage is important for you to get through and survive that experience, but then you don't want to be linked to that forever. And that's the message that we want to get to people, is that you have an opportunity to recreate and reestablish and rewrite the story for yourself with these techniques. And you don't have to be stuck in this box that you previously subconsciously created for yourself. And that's all it is. It's just this imaginary box. And anytime you catch yourself saying, I could never do that, or that's not, oh, I'm too dumb, or what, however you're judging yourself subconsciously, that's where these patterns are stored. You're hitting that glass ceiling. And for some reason, somebody put that on you, knowingly or unknowingly, and you believed it enough that it got stored in your memory. We call it subconscious emotional memory override. And so now it's overriding a normal memory pattern that should be there, and you've rewritten the script, and now you have choked down your potential for health, for wealth, for joy, whatever the situation is, and you're no longer able to fully express and open up and be your true self. And it's such a blessing, as you say, to, number one, be aware of it, but then number two, feel and see these openings occur in people. Because prior to myself learning this technique almost 25 years ago, I didn't know of anything. Well, I was aware of things, but they were all based on you knowing what the stress pattern was linked to. You had to, like, if somebody came in and they were trying to get through a loss of a family member or a divorce or whatever the situation was, yeah, all those techniques were great. But if you have no idea how all the pieces intertwined and work together to get them to that current situation, you're kind of just guessing. And that's what I love about BEST. It allows you to get at all these subconscious patterns and unwind them and tease them out, so a person can constantly update and up level and improve and improve and improve. And I know you've experienced it. I've experienced it. As your body's updating, sometimes you'll get off a table from a simple session that, involves just holding some different points and doing some different things, and your whole balance and equilibrium's off, because now your body's taking all that new information and inputting it into the computer and doing this reboot. And you just kind of have to take a minute and learn how to walk again and balance again and reintegrate all this new nervous system information. So that's how powerful it can be. And I honestly think it's always that powerful. It's just we're less aware when it's not affecting us physically, and more aware when it is. And sometimes, depending on the type of person you are, some people have a high emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, and so they're aware and feel all that shifting emotionally. I don't as much as I do the physical stuff. I'm more physically oriented. And so, some people really feel the moving of the energy even as the technique goes on. So it's really fun and exciting. to be able to bring this new way of healing. I mean, it's been around a long time, but it's still new because so many people do not know about it. But what I've learned early on in my practice is that health and life and change begins with energy. It doesn't begin with chemistry. It doesn't begin with, anything physical like an adjustment. It begins with energy. And, in professional school, we're taught about, all this anatomy and physiology. And so you're kind of up here intellectually, but then down here underneath all of that is this energy that drives all that physiology. And once I grasped that and really started focusing on energy and bringing in energy techniques into the practice and focusing on therapies that improved and balanced energies, and every analysis we do is an energy analysis, every technique that we do is an energy technique. And that's when really, honestly, the miracles started happening in our practice, because we were focused on that energy that just drives our system. And I always say to people, if somebody were to drop dead right now, did their anatomy change? Did their physiology change? Anything change? No, their energy changed. That's the big thing that changed. That's why they get the big paddles out and try to shock that energy back into flow again and rejuvenate that energy, no differently than you would jumpstart a car. So energy is the foundation of life. It's the foundation of health, and it's the foundation of what people should be focused on when it comes to their life and their decisions, and get up leveling to a new state.
I love that. I've seen a lot of that firsthand with the energy. My dad, as you know, had a stroke about a year, not quite a year and a half ago, and he recently had one just before Christmas, and he was in ICU for about 10 days in pretty rough shape for the first few. And I had Dr. Rowland doing some remote sessions on him with the best technique and some of the other advanced things he does. And there was this one night I left the ICU and my dad was still in really rough shape. Dr. Rowland did a session on him in the evening, and I show up the next day at ICU, and the nurse is like, there's been such a shift in my dad, Dwayne. Like, we can't really describe it. It must be the oxygen he's on. And I just kind of chuckled internally, knowing like, okay, I know there was some major emotional, energetic shifting that went on, because one of the things that my mom had identified with my dad is like 4 years ago, he had shingles really bad, and then these two strokes, and all of them were they came within about a week or less of a meeting with my dad's sister, where there's a lot of emotional, deep-rooted, I don't even know the extent of it, if it's not necessarily trauma, but just a lot of heavy emotions. And within a week, or sometimes just a few days, my dad would have a major health episode. So that was one of the things that I alerted Dr. Rowland to, and he was clearing those patterns. And then the next day I show up and wow, there was this major shift overnight. We just can't place it. And those are the powerful things that we can see with this work, is just shifting the underlying energy like you're speaking to. And I saw it firsthand, and it's going through this with my dad now at a more intense level with his second stroke. I don't know what we would do without the knowledge of these tools to be able to help, and the network of people like yourself and Dr. Rowland, Dr. Audrey that lives 40 minutes down the highway from me. I don't know what we would do without that. I can't imagine the people that go through this and they obviously aren't aware of these possibilities, but it just is such a blessing for me to go through this now and know what we know, have the network of people that can help, and to see the shifting take place with my dad it's just been amazing to see, what seems like, the doctors weren't painting a pretty picture in the beginning, and now, things are dramatically different. And I feel like it's not like I can attribute it all to best. Obviously, there's other things going on, but I know there were major shifts that took place that I don't believe would be there without the energy shifting and some of these patterns subconsciously that have been driving these health issues with my dad that have repeated now a few times. And these patterns don't lie, right? That if it looks like it is, it probably is like it is. And it's been amazing to see these shifts and everything. And so, we talked a little bit about the emotional and energetic subconscious aspect of that. Let's talk a little bit about where nutrition plays in. I know one of the things that we've learned from Dr. Mortar so much is about pH, and I'd like to pick your brain on a topic here around pH a little bit, and if you want to talk a little bit about nutrition as well. I know for me, the marketing out there in the world, there's these pH waters that are, 11 pH. And there was several years ago, I worked for about a year part-time at a health food store, and you get people that came in and, well, I don't want the pH 9, I want the pH 11 water because that's going to make me more alkaline, right? And that's the mentality I think out there a lot of times from the consumers, because we think that high pH is just going to neutralize the acid in the system because it's in our water. So speak a little bit to pH and what it is, how it functions in the body, and some of where there might be some misguided marketing out there in the marketplace. And if somebody's truly looking to get more alkaline, because that's the buzzword, what steps can they do to change, everything in their life that affects that, from our thoughts to the foods and the supplements that we take. I'd like to hear your thoughts a little bit on the pH and nutritional side of it.
Well, when we measure pH, and I have my trusty pH paper right here, which I measure fairly regularly myself, but pH can be a measure of health. It can be a good biomarker. It tells us how we are optimally, our pH reserve, basically our mineral reserve. That's what we're measuring when we measure pH, because it's really minerals that neutralize an excess of hydrogen ions, which is when you get acidic, that's what you have. You have an excess of hydrogen ions. And I think water got in the mix because when you split water apart, H2O, you have the two components of pH. You have the H and the OH, okay? And so you have those molecules that are buffering each other and allowing you to measure and give a measurement of pH. The thing that you want to remember when you measure pH, it is an exponential scale. So pH can change by 0.1 or 1, and you think that's no big deal, but it's 1 times 10. Okay, so it's exponential changes as you move through the scale. Our body tends to reside in a pH of about 7.35. So we're slightly alkaline. So we really don't want those super high alkalinity anythings. Anything you consume, it's best in its natural state. Of course, with water, you want it purified because it's not natural with most of the junk that we dump into it anymore. But other than purifying water, these different pH waters really aren't serving us. What's serving you is eating a healthy, high nutrient content meal with lots of vegetables, because that's where you get the minerals. Now, because we depleted our soils of so many of these minerals, it is beneficial that you take a whole food mineral supplement, because what we do is we grow our crop and we just put back a few minerals that make the crop grow fast, and we don't put in the whole compilation of all the minerals and nutrients that need to be there. So we're just fertilizing the soil enough to get a good crop the next year. And if you remember, it's even biblical. We're supposed to let our land rest. I think it's every 7 years, and we don't do that at all. And so with the addition of all the herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and the constant growing of crops and soils, yes, we rotate crops, and that does help some, but never giving our fields a chance to rest and really replenish and allow some dead, decaying plant life to get into the soil again, we are grossly nutriently depleted. And so we've got to put those minerals back into our body, whether it be with supplementation or eating. I suggest both, honestly. And what happens is our blood, of course, is one of our life systems, but it's really a communication system. If you think about it, blood is nothing more than a transportation network, and it's transporting things from point A to point B. Blood by itself doesn't do anything as far as functionality other than move things around. There's no real big physiology going on in the blood system. yes, things happen there, but it's as a result of other cells entering and leaving the circulatory system. So it's just this big movement of fluid and stuff floating around in the fluid. And that's why sometimes blood work can be deceiving, because you're just measuring what's there at that particular moment. I always tell people it's like a traffic cam. Well, when do you take it? What else was going on? You know, if you take a picture of a local interstate during rush hour, it's grossly different than during the middle of the night. But would you say if you took a picture at the middle of the night, holy cow, we built way too many lanes of road work. We need to choke this down. You know, it's a waste of money. No, you wouldn't say that, but that's how we diagnose people constantly. So pH is more functional. It gives us a little functional information, saliva pH and urine pH, and really all the pHs should be similar. But because we rob minerals from different areas to maintain our pH of our blood, which is the most important, then your gallbladder pH will go down and you get gallstones, and you think, you know, somebody told you you're eating too much calcium. No, you're not eating too much calcium. It just precipitated out because now your bile is acidic. And I don't know if anybody remembers doing those experiments when you add an acid to a solution, then all of a sudden solid starts raining out of the liquid. And so that's why pH is important. You don't want gallstones. You don't want kidney stones. Those things hurt, and they're showing that you're out of balance. You know, I've tried to eat healthy my whole life. I've tried to take supplements my whole life. I did one time get some gallbladder symptoms, but I've never, I'll soon be 62. I've never had gallstones, kidney stones, those types of things. And I think it's because of the proactive nature that I tend to take regarding health. I don't wait till I have a pain. I'm looking at some of these energy things. Energy shifts like immediately. With a thought, it will shift. With a meal, it will shift. But your blood work won't. And so blood work is more reactive. Testing energy is more proactive. And that's why I live in this energy field. We can keep people healthy and away from abnormal blood findings and things like that. And so I get that it's weird. People aren't used to it. But again, that's one of those limiting beliefs. If you grew up in another country where they practice more energy healing, like China or something like that, you would think what we're doing is weird. And if you really think about it, isn't it weird that we cut people open and take parts of their body out because it's not working right? That's pretty weird. In my years of being in healthcare, I've never found an organ to be totally unnecessary. Now, I understand there are extreme situations where you have to take pieces and parts out, but a gallstone is not a reason to take out your gallbladder. It really is not. That can be dissolved and corrected in just a few hours if you do the right protocols. And no surgery and no pain and recovery or what have you. So it's just a different shift in your mindset, just like we're talking about shifting other thought processes. And so pH is important, and it's important to look at function. It's important to understand function and understand, is your body adapting to stress, or is it prepared to adapt to future stresses? Because there's one fact that we know: we're always going to have stress on the body, whether it's physical, emotional, or chemical, and we want to keep it in the middle where it can adapt and adjust and come back to center after that stress is over. That's the goal of healthcare.
Love it. Yeah, it's something I see so much that, you know, there's the Kangen waters and a lot of these things that it's always, you know, makes me mixed emotions, I guess, on that topic. But, you know, knowing what we know with being able to test the pH and knowing how our thoughts affect pH and knowing what we consume affects pH, that we can really take, like say, a proactive stance and make sure, excuse me, our body has what it needs to, like you say, to handle the things that are coming up. So I want to jump into, I want to talk a little bit about CBD oil, because you are the primary person that has introduced this whole idea to me, and it's been a wonderful product that now I seem like I can't live without. Was totally off my radar screen. You know, you hear about it out there in my community here in Michigan. You know, there's a lot of the hemp places opening up now all over, and you know, it was just before you had introduced it to me and shared with me some of the science behind it, and and the importance of it, and how a major pillar it is to health. I had no idea. I'm just going off of what you kind of hear from society, and it's kind of like, so many people think you're going to get high off of it, and it's something that only druggies do, or people that have like, rare health conditions that need it for pain or something like that. I had no idea that there's actually a foundation in medicine with it that dates years back. And from my experience with it so far is, now it's just to the point of, I can't say it's been like, oh, it healed my knee pain or it did this, but now I can just, when I take it or when I don't take it, I can sense the lack of just like overall balance that it provides for me, and just on a lot of areas. And I know it helps with inflammation. I've seen that firsthand with some things in my own body, and I've loved what it's doing. And I want to thank you for introducing it to me. But explain to the listeners here, its important role in the body, and some of the wonderful things that you've learned about with it.
Well, this could take up the whole time that we have together, but I'll try to condense it because I love the fact that you use the word balance, because that's really what it does. It creates balance in the body. It creates what we call as physicians homeostasis. And little did I know, and little do most healthcare professionals know, let alone lay people, is we have what's called an endocannabinoid system. And this endocannabinoid system is a system of receptors all over every organ and every blood vessel and all over your brain and your nervous system. It's all over. We have these receptors that make up the endocannabinoid system. So when you activate these receptors, it facilitates bringing that organ or that system or that functionality of that system back into balance. So we call those types of things an adaptogen. So they allow you to adapt to stresses that are put on that system. And the thing that, we always used to understand, there was adaptogens for the adrenal glands, the stomach, and et cetera, et cetera. But this is an adaptogen for your whole entire system. Your emotional system, your chemical system, your physical system. Like you say, it helps with pain and inflammation. It also helps to detoxify your body. It is a bioaccumulator, so it sucks up toxins and binds them and takes them out of your body. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, so it's beneficial to brain function. It has been proven to prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, stroke, and cardiovascular diseases. And that is a published U.S. patent put out by the National Institutes of Health. So it's a big thing, and there's zero side effects. They gave 700 milligrams of CBD oil to healthy young males for multiple days, multiple months, and they never had zero side effects. That's because your body makes what's called endocannabinoids, and then what's in your CBD oils is phytocannabinoids, so plant-based cannabinoids. And the reason why we need the phytocannabinoids is because we don't get enough healthy fats, et cetera, in our system to make enough endocannabinoids. And so we are not optimally stimulating our endocannabinoid system, and we're out of balance and having health challenges. So it becomes hugely important when you understand this, that we all need to take a CBD oil. But you don't want to take just any CBD oil, because remember, it's a bioaccumulator. So it could be toxic. It could have herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. It could have heavy metals. It could have chemicals. And so you want one that's been tested and has a certificate of analysis that shows that it's pure, shows what's on the label is in the bottle, because we all see, from vitamins to minerals, that people label that it's in there, but there's 0 to none in there. And the one thing that I like and is necessary for me, because I don't like the taste of hemp oil, is it's got to taste good. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it every single day. Most things I can gut through, honestly, and I'm fine. But the taste of hemp is not good to me at all. I can't gut through it. And so they have several flavors, but I just get the Florida orange flavor, and it has a nice citrus flavor, and it's really smooth and easy. And the other thing that I like about Kukua Vita is they use Myron glass bottles. And so the Myron glass blocks the UV light. So I always tell people, don't throw these bottles away. If you have like an essential oil mix or whatever, rinse out this bottle and put that in there, because this Myron glass is really high quality glass that you want to keep consuming, and nobody else that on the market is using it. So use the bottle, recycle the bottles for your own use. Don't put them in the glass recycling bottle. But Kukua Vita is doing everything right. They have the highest standards that I've come across. And the cool thing I like about them is I've been on medical boards before, but if we say no, they say no. They don't just push ahead, even though we say no, which has been my experience with other companies. We'll say, no, I really don't like that in there. And then they'll say, well, we have to have it in there for manufacturing purposes. Nope. These guys have really thought outside the box and put products out that we wholeheartedly endorse. When I say we, there's a medical board of 4 doctors, and we are constantly putting our input in when they are developing and bringing new products on board. So it's been a joy to work with them. And the other thing I like about them is, as we know, CBD oil can be expensive. And their regular, this is the only price I have off the top of my head, but their regular 3,500 milligram CBD oil in both full spectrum and broad spectrum, the only difference being broad spectrum is THC free, because some people can't have that in their system because they work at a job where they get drug tested. And that's another thing. A lot of these people say THC free, but they don't test it. And so then all of a sudden you're giving your urine sample and you test positive. That's not cool with us at Kukua Vita. We make sure there is absolutely zero THC if you get the broad spectrum. Then the full spectrum has the THC just the way it occurred in nature. It's just a little bit. You won't get high or anything like that, but it does kind of potentiate the effects of the other cannabinoids that are in the full spectrum oil. So you have that option. Tends to be that the full spectrum works a little better on your system at night, tends to be the broad spectrum works a little better on your system in the morning. So that's how they kind of market it, as the AM version and the PM version, but that's the true difference between those two oils. They're $99 for 3,500 milligrams, and they just came out with a new program where you can pay one time a year, $99, and then you can buy 2 bottles as many times as you want for the price of 1. So it takes the cost of the bottle down to less than $50 a piece for 3,500 milligrams. So that's a great value. It's a great product, and I don't think you can touch it anywhere on the marketplace for that price.
Yeah, I've looked around extensively and have, clients and friends that'll occasionally send me stuff, and I'm like, that doesn't touch what I've got, doesn't touch what I've got, so it's definitely a very good value. And I love the flavor. It's amazing. I think I've tried all 3, the strawberry lemon.
Strawberry
Yeah,
banana, I
strawberry
think.
banana, that's right. And then the mocha. And I like the orange is the best. So, well, great. I love, all that around the CBD. I, give it to our kids, and, we take it, and it's just been a great staple as a foundational thing in our household.
And I like that you said that about kids. A lot of people question, should I give this to my kids? And they don't realize that these endocannabinoids are in breast milk, and they cross the placental barrier. And so your kids are getting it when they're in utero. They're getting it when they're nursing. So it's meant to be there. It's meant to be in our bodies.
Yep.
At all ages.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the biggest thing that we use it, outside of just therapeutically is, if the kids fall and get hurt, or even, us adults do that, and being able to put a drop of it on a spot that hurts, and just to feel after 10, 15 minutes, like the pain is substantially less, because it's such a good thing for pain. I know you were telling me about that early on of, how it blocks the pain receptors and does it naturally, and there's no side effects. You don't have to be on the opioids and all that kind of stuff. And it's been a big benefit in our household just using it that way. So, well, cool. I think the last topic I wanted to talk about was, we talked about energy in the beginning, and how shifting the energy, shifting the patterns can make a difference in our physical body and the way we show up in the world. And I'd like your thoughts on, shifting the energy and your experience around money and wealth and abundance, and, some keys that you've found in your experience of what makes someone be able to get to the new levels of wealth and money just by shifting energy, And, just are there some key things that you've learned over your years in practice with dealing with cash flow that have made you more successful around money? I'd just like to see some of your thoughts around the wealth topic a little bit.
Yeah, the biggest thing I've observed, because I do own my own practice and I have managed it for 30 years, over 30 years. And, it's a lot because we aren't trained as doctors to be business people.
Mhm.
And so, I got my MBA by learning what not to do. So I definitely paid the price of an MBA. And I think most small business owners do. And unless they have a coach or somebody guiding them, which I have multiple coaches at this point in my life because I've learned that they help me avoid those pitfalls and they're well worth the investment.
Mhm.
So the biggest thing though is the knowingness. Knowing, setting a goal or setting a path or setting a trajectory and having a plan and just knowing that you can do it. Early on in my practice days, I would set goals and there would always be that fear and trepidation and, oh, I can't do that. Oh, that's too big, or no, I'll never do that. It just felt uneasy even setting some of those goals. Now I set them and I'm just like, I know we can do that. And even if we fall short, which last year we fell short of our goal that I set, but we still increased 20%. So it wasn't a bad year by any means. It just, we had some hiccups and we didn't stay on course with our plan, and some things happened outside of our control that got us a little off course. But it was still a good year, and we learned from all of those experiences and we got better. And now our goal is even bigger this year because we course corrected from all those things that happened last year, and we have a better foundation to jump off of this year to go further yet than what we had planned to do last year. So our goal isn't to go ahead and do what we did last year. Our goal is to far exceed that because we know that we can, and we know we have the potential, and we've set things in motion to do that and have added staff to do that. So to me, not that you don't have to do the work, not that you don't have to do the planning, not that you don't have to do all those things. And I'm constantly learning more and more about all of that because those pieces are so important. As your team grows, they have to be seeing the same vision and believing in the same vision and buying into the same vision and seeing what their part is to getting to that vision. That's the big thing we're working out right now, is the team seeing what they can do to affect the vision. Because sometimes team members feel, well, it's just me, I'm just doing this, I'll just do it again. No, they got to do it at a bigger level. What got you to this point won't get you to the next point. And that's a repeated message that I have with our team. But that belief system is so important. Once you believe it, that's the first step. And I believe the saying goes, if you believe it, you can achieve it. But you got to buy into that. You can't just say it. It's got to be in your heart. You got to resonate with it, as we've talked about. And I didn't resonate with it for a long, long time. And then once I started resonating with it, our practice has just taken leaps and bounds. We've always grown every single year. I'm so blessed to be able to say that for 30 years. We've always gotten bigger. But now those chunks have been bigger chunks of getting bigger, not just little growth steps, because we believe and we prepare and we plan for success. We don't plan for anything less than a big impact on our community. Our goal, our long-term goal that we focus on every single day is we want to be the #1 health and wellness choice in Southern Indiana, for physical appointments. That's our goal, to be the first place that people think of. Oh, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go to Jennings County Well Care. I'm going to get well. I'm going to stay healthy. Not that they go everywhere else and then come to us, or go to a couple others and tried that. Now I'm going to come to you. I hear you can help. No, we don't want to be that anymore. Mm-hmm. It's gotten us for 30 years and we've done great, and we probably could do great in the future. But we want to be the #1 health and wellness choice in Southern Indiana. And that's what we're working hard on. And I believe we'll do it.
I love it. So last question that I did think of as you were talking about that. So go back to, I want to hear a little bit of, you were speaking early in your career, you were having the goals and weren't totally in alignment with them. And then there was a point where that shifted. What was it for you that allowed for that shift? Was it just, how did you raise your belief? What steps did you take? Do you remember, was there things you did that got you to that point?
Well, again, a lot of it came from just having some mentorship. And it also came from, so early on, you were just overwhelmed of what it took to run a business. I remember, holy cow, I got payroll, I got this, I got that. You're just overwhelmed with all these things that you're getting used to doing and learning about and trying to understand and not get in trouble and do everything in a timely fashion. And then you feel the pressure. I remember early on, you felt the pressure of, people need this money. I gotta have so much in the bank so I can meet payroll, and then I realized I don't want to feel that pressure anymore. I want to have a cash reserve. And so I, build up a cash reserve and didn't spend as much for a long while till we had a cash reserve and I didn't stress about payday or anything like, just some of these lessons, learning, like we've talked about, things happen for a reason and they'll keep happening until you learn and change the pattern. And so once I said, okay, what's this teaching me? I don't like this situation. I got myself here. And probably here's the shift. Now that I've talked through this a little bit, I remember sitting at a seminar and I was particularly kind of bummed about where we were at that particular stage, probably financially at the office. And then the person on the stage says, you are exactly where you are today because of all the choices that you've made leading up to today. And at first I, knee-jerk reaction. No way. I didn't choose this. Heck no, I don't want, that's my subconscious talking. And then after all that chatter got out of the way and I thought about it, I'm like, holy crap, he's right. I need to make better and different choices. And then I'll be in a better and different place. It's that simple. What the heck? Why am I making this so hard? And so that probably was the turning point, honestly, now that I think about that and pinpoint it. And I know I've talked about that in the past. That was a memorable time for me when that happened, because I initially rejected it, and I could have totally rejected it and stayed on that poor path. But then I thought about it, I brought it in, I learned from it and adjusted, and my life has been better. Do I still make mistakes? Yes. I'm not perfect. Am I still learning? Heck yes, I'm still learning. I love learning. I don't like some of the ways that I have to learn, but I love learning. And I plan on getting better and better and better. And someday, hopefully, passing the practice on to somebody else that will nurture it into the next phase of its existence.
I love it. Well, I think that's one of the things that I've always loved about you, and why I'm thankful for you to spend some time with us today, is just because that is your intention, to always be growing and always learning and helping others expand around you. So appreciate your time today, Dr. Bruce, and all the experience and knowledge that you've brought. Appreciate all the nuggets that you've delivered here today, and hopefully our listeners have gained a lot of value from those insights. So appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.